Hey guys, Kathleen here and Millie the pug. Today I wanted to kind of wrap my mind around Job a little better. Job has, for me at least, been a book that has been difficult to understand. And I think that's why the enemy is always throwing Job at me. And I'm like, okay, I'm not just, Job is deep. It's very deep and it's hard to understand. And I understand that's why it's always thrown at me. And maybe you're finding that too. Why are people who are claiming God will punish you, God's gonna make you suffer, those people, Calvinists, always are throwing Job at you, she tooted. Anyway, so it's not by accident. It's because it is a very rich book, and I found my issue with understanding it. There are multiple people speaking in this book, which is where I get stumped, because we have God speaking in this book. We have even Satan, the accuser. You have Job. You have his 3 councilmen who are counseling him, his friends, but they're not doing a good job. And you even have like a few random people so that's 6. And then you have random people such as Job's wife, who's not very righteous. She's no faith. And a couple people coming in to let Job knows what's happening. So ultimately there's 6, but where I got really confused just by reading it myself is when Job's speaking versus when his 3 friends are speaking, because all 4 of them, I could not tell the difference, because when I read, it's my own voice in my head. I don't have a different voice for Job and then a different voice for each 3 councilmen, I guess, or friends. And I would start reading one of them and I couldn't, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot who's talking here. And I had to rewind and go back, and it was just tedious. So the answer for me, because I struggle with keeping it separate. And I think, the Holy Spirit's like, just find a simpler way. And that was to find an audio Bible who changed the voices for each person talking. And that is exactly what I needed. What you doing? You're looking all sad. So it was really helpful listening to Job with different tones of voice for each person's turn speaking. That way, I now see clearly why it was so confusing in the first place. But now I see clearly what the 3 people counseling Job during his suffering were for. And I see what Job was saying. And all of them were very, such words of wisdom, but all 4 of them had also wrong things to say also. The 3 were claiming God is just, which is absolutely correct. And everything God does is perfect and just, correct. But they were blaming they're saying, for you to be suffering like this, Job, it has to be because you sinned. And you deserve it because God is just. And then, which is wrong. See, they say some right things but that big wrong thing, not because of sin. Job's not suffering because of sin. Even God said in the beginning of the book that he is just, he is upright, and he is faithful. And Job's conclusion is like, no, quit mocking me. I haven't sinned. Again, lots of rich words. And God just must be unjust to punish me like this, which is wrong. See, truthfully, Job has not stated that he's not experiencing hardship because of sin. And wrongfully, Job concludes, well, God's just not just, right? So the whole time, this is happening, which is the bulk of Job, the letters between, or conversation between Job and 3 other people who are counseling him. The entire time, Job had been just. And, Job's faith was, from the start, middle, and even the end, was there. And Job says, my Redeemer lives. Even though everything Job was going through, suffering and hardship, out of his mouth comes, for I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the later day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh I shall see God. So he's talking about, this is a prophecy of Jesus Christ. This is amazing faith right here in a man that's suffering. And maybe whom I shall see myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and no other through my reins be consumed within me. Faith. The guy kept his faith even through suffering, even though he made the wrong claim that God must just be unjust to make me suffer like this because I didn't do anything to deserve it. Now, I want to point out something that stood out to me when reading, not through, because I read it and I said I needed the audio Bible with different voices. But in the first chapter, and this is what really stood out to me, because I'm like, why does it say that? For what purpose? Because it's not obvious at the beginning. And it's about his children. And it was so when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. So Job was worried for no reason. It doesn't give us a reason why he thought that, but I think as a parent, we want our children to be close with God, right? But he goes and he sanctifies them through burnt offerings. So that's we're talking about sanctification here. So the whole time, through the beginning, Job 1 to Job, 35, the whole long book, Job was always seen in God's eyes as righteous and as justified. But where Job was depending on his sanctification, I guess, was through burnt offerings, right? But always Job was good in the sight of God, even through saying God is not just, but he believed on him to be the Redeemer, no matter what. So then we're going to scroll over, and it's funny because through the back and forth in the middle of the text, it's a long one, Job versus the 3 people, God says, here it is. Finally, Job just cries out to God. Job stops talking to his friends, and he addresses God directly. And so finally God answers Job, and that's the way. Go to God directly. Stop contending with your man-made doctrines of what you think God is, or how you think God should act, or how you think God should bless you or not bless you. And the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? So after this, God even rebukes the 3 friends. The 3 friends that declared God's righteous and he should, it's because your sin he punished you. So even after all that, God rebukes them, and because of, and even Job prays for his friends to help get his friends right on the right track. So the prayers and the sanctification. So sanctification is very important to know that it is also from God himself, not through wise... One sec. Not through the wise words of men.
Who knows? I don't want to hear you, you know?
Hey, I'm just doing a quick video. So 1 second. So, sanctification, justification is through faith. Sanctification is also through faith and the approaching of God for counsel, not some wise men who have vain understanding of the knowledge of God, which is, you gird up thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee an answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declared thou hast understanding. So, blessings. And the Bible says, through faith in Jesus Christ, we have all spiritual blessings laid up for us with Christ. And it tells us to come to the throne of God boldly. Come boldly to the throne of God. I like the word bold because it has no right to justify ourselves, whether we sinned or not sinned. If I was living a perfect life and didn't have any issues or sin, then I would not need to be bold. The people who believe in such things, such as these three in Job's life, would see you approach God and be close with God, which is how we were sanctified through Jesus Christ. And they would think, well, that's bold. Look at you. Look at your life you're living. No, you must have, you know what I mean? Always making a reason why we don't go to the one who has knowledge and we seek counsel through vain man's philosophy. So, to wrap this up, the suffering of Job ended when he stopped seeking understanding from men about God and went directly to God himself. And when, the knowledge of men was just like, I give, enough. You clearly aren't getting it, but only God alone can sanctify us, Job, and everyone else with faith. So, and suffering can come from a person who is in faith and is righteous in the eyes of God, because we do suffer in this life. But peace, knowledge, and wisdom and joy comes when we approach God directly and stop trying to understand him through the wisdom of men. So that is what Job has taught me. It's a pretty big book to read, so I appreciated the audio Bible that changed the voices for me, so I can differentiate who's saying what and not be so confused. So, yeah, that's just my downfall. I needed separation of the speaker in a book where there's like 6 to 7 people speaking. It's really helpful, but yeah, sanctification through Jesus Christ, justification through Jesus Christ, both are by faith, both are from God, and it's not deeds, it's not works, and that is what Job has taught me. Great, thank you. Hey, so I actually forgot to add one important takeaway from the book of Job. I think I was distracted with my husband coming in and my daughter and my dog, but the important takeaway that I got from Job was that we are not to listen to men mansplaining God's sovereignty. So can't even say that right. Sovereignty. Yeah. we're not to listen to vain man's philosophy and putting it, oh God, making it, if you sin, God's gonna punish you, and making that a way of sanctification. When, remember the verse, I think it's in the beginning chapter, where Job is worried about his children, so he goes to do the burnt offerings to sanctify them, right? So clearly that's there for a reason. And in the end, sanctification was through approaching God, coming to God, addressing God, not contending with men, these three men, and all their ideas about how God works, why they're suffering, why people with no faith, which are evil people, seem to be blessed in this life, and vice versa. People who have faith sometimes suffer. So don't contend with doctrines of men on how they think God's sovereignty works. There's certain doctrines out there that are so based on teaching you God's sovereignty. I think in Job, God answers what he thinks about that. I think he clearly rebukes the three friends, and that they need to get right with God, and Job prays for them. So that's my thoughts. I actually think the book is really good. It was a really good lesson. I hope y'all dive into it, and if you are like me, try an audio Bible with different voices. So thanks, guys.